The crack of her father's hand across her face echoed through the ranch house, and Natalie Donovan tasted blood as she staggered backward against the rough wooden wall. "You are nothing!" Edmund Donovan spat, his breath reeking of whiskey even at 9 in the morning. "Those cattle out there have more value than you ever will. At least they serve a purpose." It was March 1878 in Petaluma, California, and spring should have meant renewal, hope, new beginnings. For Natalie, it meant another day of surviving her father's wrath, another morning of wondering if she would make it to sunset. She was 22 years old, and every single one of those years had been spent being told she was worthless, that her existence was a burden, that she should have been born a son instead of a daughter who could not inherit the ranch properly, could not carry on the Donovan name with any dignity. She pressed her palm to her split lip and said nothing. Speaking back only made it worse. Edmund Donovan had built his cattle empire from nothing, clawing his way up from poverty through sheer brutality and determination, and he had expected a son to leave it all to. Instead, his wife had died, giving him Natalie, and he had never forgiven either of them for it. "Get out of my sight," he growled, turning back to the whiskey bottle on the table. "Go make yourself useful in the barn. Maybe you can at least shovel horse manure without disappointing me." Natalie fled before he could change his mind and decide she deserved another blow. The morning sun was bright and merciless as she stumbled across the yard, past the bunkhouse where the ranch hands pretended not to notice her bloodied face, past the chicken coop where the hens scattered at her approach. She made it to the barn and collapsed against a hay bale, finally allowing herself to cry. "Miss Donovan?" The voice was gentle, concerned, and distinctly unfamiliar. Natalie's head snapped up, and she found herself looking at a man she had never seen before. He was tall and lean, with dark hair that fell across his forehead and eyes the color of creek water in summer. He held his hat in his hands, and there was something in his expression that made her chest tighten. Not pity exactly, something softer, something like understanding. "Who are you?" she managed, wiping at her tears with the back of her hand. "Name is Lucas Wright, miss. Just got hired on this morning. Your father told me to report to the barn, said someone would show me the ropes." He took a cautious step closer, and Natalie saw his jaw tighten as he noticed her injuries. "Are you all right? That lip looks like it needs tending." "I am fine," she lied automatically. It was what she always said, what she had to say. Lucas did not look convinced. He set his hat on a fence post and pulled a clean handkerchief from his pocket. "May I?" he asked. And when she nodded hesitantly, he dampened it from the water trough and approached her slowly, as though she were a frightened horse that might bolt at any moment. His touch was impossibly gentle as he cleaned the blood from her lip. Natalie could not remember the last time anyone had touched her with kindness. Her father's hands brought only pain, and the other ranch hands kept their distance, too afraid of Edmund's temper to show her any compassion. "Thank you," she whispered when he stepped back. "Who did this to you?" Lucas asked quietly, though something in his voice suggested he already knew. Natalie looked away. "It does not matter. It is just how things are." That is not an answer, and it is definitely not how things should be. There was steel beneath the gentleness now, and Natalie felt something flutter in her chest. Hope, maybe, though she had learned long ago not to trust that particular emotion. Before she could respond, the barn door banged open, and one of the senior ranch hands, a grizzled man named Pete, stomped in. "There you are, new guy. Come on, we have got work to do. Cattle are not going to move themselves." He glanced at Natalie with something that might have been sympathy, then looked away quickly. "You too, Miss Donovan. Your father wants the stalls mucked out before noon." Lucas held Natalie's gaze for one more moment, something unspoken passing between them, before he followed Pete out into the sunlight. Natalie watched him go, her fingers pressed to her lip where his handkerchief had been. The days that followed fell into a pattern. Edmund continued his usual cruelty, finding new ways to remind Natalie of her worthlessness. She burned the breakfast, and he threw the pan at her head. She took too long fetching his evening whiskey, and he locked her in the cellar overnight. She dared to speak at the dinner table, and he told her that even the mangy dogs that slept under the porch had more intelligence than she did. But something had changed. Lucas Wright had arrived, and he seemed determined to prove every one of Edmund's words wrong. It started small. Natalie would find her heaviest chores already completed when she arrived at the barn in the morning. The water buckets would be filled, the stalls already mucked out, the feed already distributed to the horses. At first, she thought perhaps Pete had taken pity on her, but she caught Lucas finishing the last stall one morning, his shirt soaked with sweat despite the early hour. "You do not have to do this," she said softly, and he turned to look at her with those summer creek eyes. "I know I do not have to," he replied. "I want to." "Why?" He leaned on the pitchfork, studying her face. The bruise on her cheek from 2 days ago had faded to a sickly yellow. "Because nobody should have to live the way you are living. Because you deserve kindness. Because your father is wrong about you." Natalie's throat tightened. "You do not know anything about me. Then let me learn." He said it so simply, as though it were the most natural thing in the world, as though she were someone worth knowing. Over the following weeks, Lucas found countless small ways to make her life easier. He would intercept her father's errands, volunteering to ride into town for supplies so Natalie would not have to face Edmund's wrath if she took too long or bought the wrong brand of tobacco. He would engage Edmund in conversation about cattle and grazing land, distracting him when the old man's temper began to rise, and Natalie happened to be in his line of sight. He would leave small things for her to find: a wildflower tucked into the barn door handle, a perfectly round stone that glittered in the sunlight, once even a book of poetry he had bought in town with his first week's wages. "Where did you come from?" Natalie asked him one evening as they sat on the corral fence, watching the sun paint the California hills gold and crimson. Edmund was passed out drunk in the house, and for once she felt like she could breathe. "Originally, Missouri," Lucas said. "But I have been drifting for a while now, working ranches, moving on when the work dried up or the situation went sour. Been all over: Nevada, Arizona, up through Oregon 1 year. Never really had a place that felt like home. What made you stop here?" He turned to look at her, and the expression in his eyes made her heart skip. "I think maybe I was looking for a reason to stay put. I just did not know it until I found one." Natalie wanted to ask what he meant, but she was afraid of the answer, afraid to hope that he meant her. She had been told she was worthless for so long that the idea of being someone's reason seemed impossible. "Tell me about Missouri," she said instead, and Lucas obliged, spinning stories of his childhood on a small farm, of learning to ride before he could properly walk, of his mother's cooking and his father's laugh. There was sadness there, too. His parents had died of fever when he was 16, and he had been on his own ever since. "What about you?" he asked. "Have you always lived here?" "My whole life," Natalie said quietly. "My mother died when I was born. My father has reminded me of that fact every single day since I was old enough to understand the words. He says I killed her, that I stole his chance at happiness and gave him nothing but disappointment in return." Lucas's hand found hers on the fence rail, his calloused fingers warm and solid. "That is a terrible thing to say to a child, to anyone. Your mother's death was not your fault, Natalie. You know that, right?" She had heard the words before, from the preacher's wife who took pity on her sometimes, from Pete when he had too much to drink and felt talkative. But hearing them from Lucas was different. When he said it, she almost believed it. "He is my father," she said. "He must have some reason to feel the way he does. Being someone's father does not give them the right to treat you like you are nothing. You are not nothing, Natalie Donovan. You are kind and strong, and you have survived 22 years of hell that would have broken most people. That takes courage." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I do not feel courageous." The bravest people usually do not. His thumb traced circles on the back of her hand, and Natalie felt warmth spread through her entire body. But I see you. I see how hard you work, how you keep going, even when your father tears you down. I see how gentle you are with the horses, how you save scraps for the barn cats, how you never complain even when you have every right to. You are extraordinary, and I wish you could see yourself the way I see you. Natalie turned to face him fully, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. How do you see me? Lucas reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted, and cupped her cheek in his palm. I see someone beautiful, someone worthy of love and respect, and every good thing this world has to offer. Someone I cannot stop thinking about. Lucas, she breathed, and then his lips were on hers, soft and careful, asking rather than demanding. Natalie had never been kissed before, had never imagined anyone would want to kiss her, and the tenderness of it made her dizzy. She kissed him back, pouring all of her loneliness and longing into that single moment of connection. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Lucas rested his forehead against hers. I am falling in love with you, he whispered. I know I have only been here a few weeks, and maybe that is too fast. Maybe I am crazy, but I cannot help it. Every day I see you, every moment we spend together, I fall a little bit more. I am falling too, Natalie admitted, and saying it out loud felt like the bravest thing she had ever done. I am terrified, but I am falling. Then fall with me, Lucas said. We will figure it out together. But falling in love on Edmund Donovan's ranch was not simple or safe. The man had eyes everywhere, and he noticed when Natalie started smiling more, when she took extra care with her appearance, when she found excuses to be near the new hand. His suspicion festered like an infected wound, and one afternoon in late April, it finally came to a head. Natalie was hanging laundry when her father stormed across the yard, his face purple with rage. You think I do not see what is going on? He roared, grabbing her arm hard enough to leave bruises. You think I am stupid? That cowboy has been sniffing around you like a dog in heat, and you have been letting him. Father, please, Natalie gasped, trying to twist free. You are hurting me. I will do worse than hurt you if you have been whoring yourself out to the help. He shoved her toward the house, and she stumbled, catching herself on the porch railing. Get inside. You are not leaving this house until I say so. Mr. Donovan, sir. Lucas's voice cut through the air like a knife. He was walking towards them from the barn, his hands loose at his sides, but his entire body radiating tension. Let her go. Edmund's eyes narrowed. You are fired, right? Get off my property before I have you thrown off. Not until you let her go. Lucas was closer now, and Natalie could see the muscle jumping in his jaw. You want to take your anger out on someone, take it out on me, but you leave her alone. You have got some nerve, boy, Edmund snarled. This is my daughter and my ranch. I will do what I damn well please with both of them. She is not property, Lucas said, his voice steady despite the danger crackling in the air. She is a human being, and she deserves to be treated like one. If you cannot understand that, then you do not deserve to call yourself her father. Edmund lunged for Lucas, but despite being 20 years younger, Lucas was faster. He sidestepped the older man easily, catching his wrist and twisting just enough to force Edmund off balance. I do not want to fight you, sir, but I will not stand by and watch you hurt her anymore. Father, stop! Natalie cried, rushing down the porch steps. Please, just stop. I will do whatever you want. I will stay in the house. I will not speak to Lucas again. Just please stop. Natalie, no, Lucas said, his eyes finding hers. You do not have to do that. Yes, I do, she whispered. He is my father. This is my home. I have nowhere else to go. Then come with me. Lucas released Edmund, who staggered backward, breathing hard. Leave here, Natalie. Come with me right now. We will go anywhere you want. I will take care of you, I promise. It was madness. It was impossible. It was everything Natalie had been afraid to even dream about. I cannot just leave, she said, but her voice was uncertain. Why not? Lucas asked. What is keeping you here? Fear? Obligation? Neither of those is a good enough reason to stay in a place that is killing you. If she leaves with you, she leaves with nothing, Edmund growled, having caught his breath. Not a penny, not a stitch of clothing beyond what she is wearing. And I will make sure every ranch in California knows she is a disobedient whore who ran off with a cowboy. She will never be welcome in polite society again. I do not care about polite society, Lucas said, his eyes never leaving Natalie's. I care about you. So what do you say? Are you willing to take a chance on me? On us? Natalie looked at her father, at the man who had spent her entire life telling her she was worthless, that she would never amount to anything, that she was less valuable than the cattle he sold for slaughter. Then she looked at Lucas, who saw her as something precious, who treated her with gentleness and respect, who made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be happy. The choice was terrifying. It was also the easiest decision she had ever made. Yes, she said, I am coming with you. Edmund's roar of rage followed them as they ran for the barn. Lucas saddled 2 horses with practiced efficiency, while Natalie grabbed a few supplies: canteens, jerky, blankets, a spare shirt of her father's that she could use for warmth. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely tie the bedroll, but Lucas was there, his steady presence anchoring her. We need to go, he said urgently as shouts erupted from the bunkhouse. Edmund was rallying the other ranch hands, ordering them to stop the fleeing pair. Lucas boosted Natalie onto a gray mare, then swung onto his own horse, a sturdy bay gelding. Can you ride hard? Yes, Natalie said, gripping the reins. Eat. Her heart was hammering against her ribs, but beneath the fear was something else. Exhilaration. Freedom. Then ride like the devil himself is chasing us, Lucas said, and they burst out of the barn at a gallop. The California countryside flew past in a blur of gold and green. They rode north, away from Petaluma, away from Edmund Donovan and his poison. Behind them, Natalie could hear the thunder of hoofbeats as the ranch hands gave chase, but Lucas knew the land better than she had expected. He led them through creeks to hide their trail, up rocky slopes where tracking would be difficult, through dense stands of oak trees that provided cover. They rode for hours, not stopping until the sun had set and the horses were lathered with sweat. Lucas finally pulled up in a small canyon, a place where a natural overhang provided shelter and a thin stream offered water. We should be safe here for the night, he said, swinging down from his horse. They will have given up the chase by now. Your father is not going to risk his horses in the dark over this. Natalie dismounted on legs that shook from exhaustion and adrenaline. The reality of what she had done was starting to sink in. She had left. She had actually left. She had no money, no possessions beyond what she wore, and no plan for what came next. The fear must have shown on her face because Lucas was suddenly there, his hands on her shoulders, his eyes searching hers. Hey, he said softly. Breathe. You are all right. We are all right. I do not know what to do, Natalie admitted. I have never been beyond Petaluma. I do not know how to survive out here. What if this was a mistake? What if I should have stayed? No, Lucas said firmly. Leaving was the bravest thing you could have done. And yes, we do not have much right now. But we have each other, and we have our freedom. That is more than we had this morning. He was right, Natalie realized. This morning she had been trapped, living a half-life under her father's cruelty. Now she was here, under the stars, with a man who loved her. It was terrifying and uncertain, but it was also beautiful. They made camp, such as it was. Lucas built a small fire, careful to keep it low so the smoke would not give away their position. They shared the jerky and drank from the stream, and when the cold night air settled around them, Lucas spread out the blankets and pulled Natalie into his arms. What happens now? She asked, her head resting on his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, steady and strong. We head north, Lucas said, stroking her hair. I have a friend in Sacramento who owns a horse ranch. He is a good man, and he owes me a favor. He will give us work and a place to stay until we get on our feet. After that, we can decide what we want to do. Maybe save up enough to get a small place of our own. Nothing fancy, just somewhere that is ours. That sounds wonderful, Natalie whispered. But Lucas, you gave up your job for me, your income. What if your friend cannot help us? What if we cannot find work? Then we will figure something else out, Lucas said. I am not worried, Natalie. I am a hard worker, and so are you. We will make it work because we have to. Because I am not going to let anything happen to you. She tilted her head up to look at him, and in the firelight, his face was all shadows and angles. Why? She asked. Why did you risk everything for me? You barely know me. I know enough, Lucas said. I know you are kind and brave, and you deserve so much better than what you have been given. I know that when I look at you, I see my future. I know that I would rather be poor and free with you than comfortable and alone without you. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. I love you, Natalie Donovan. I know it is fast, and I know we have a hard road ahead of us, but I love you. That is all that matters. Natalie kissed him then, deeply and thoroughly, trying to pour all of her gratitude and affection and desperate hope into the contact. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, she said, I love you too. I have never said that to anyone before, but I am saying it now. I love you, Lucas Wright. They held each other through the night, talking in whispers about their dreams and fears, about the life they wanted to build together. Lucas told her about his hope of owning land someday, of raising horses and maybe some cattle, of having a family in a home filled with laughter instead of fear. Natalie confessed her secret love of reading, how she would sneak books from the general store and hide them under her mattress, devouring them by candlelight when her father was too drunk to notice. She told him she wanted to see the ocean, that she had lived her whole life in California, but had never seen the Pacific. Then we will go see it, Lucas promised. Once we get settled, we will take a trip to the coast. I will take you anywhere you want to go. As dawn broke over the canyon, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, they packed up their meager camp and continued north. The next few days were hard. They rationed their food carefully, supplementing it with fish Lucas caught in streams and rabbits he managed to snare. They slept under the stars, curled together for warmth. They avoided towns and people, not wanting word of their whereabouts to get back to Edmond. But despite the hardship, Natalie had never been happier. Every morning, Lucas proved her father wrong simply by treating her like she mattered. He asked her opinion on which direction they should travel. He made sure she ate before he did. He tended to the small scrapes and bruises she accumulated from days on horseback with the same gentle care he had shown that first day in the barn. He told her she was beautiful when she was dirty and exhausted, her hair a tangled mess and her dress torn. He made her laugh with stories from his traveling days. He held her when she cried from exhaustion or fear or the overwhelming uncertainty of their situation. You are doing so well, he told her one evening as they made camp near a small grove of trees. I know this is not easy, but you have not complained once. You are stronger than you know. I do not feel strong, Natalie admitted. I am terrified most of the time. What if we do not make it to Sacramento? What if your friend cannot help us? What if my father finds us? Then we will deal with it, Lucas said. Together. That is what you do when you love someone. You face the hard things together. He pulled her close, kissing the top of her head. But for what it is worth, I think we are going to be just fine. Better than fine. They reached Sacramento in mid-May, both of them exhausted and filthy but alive. Lucas's friend, a man named Thomas who owned a ranch on the outskirts of town, welcomed them with open arms. He was a burly man in his 40s with a kind face and a booming laugh, and he did not ask too many questions about why Lucas had shown up with a woman in tow and no possessions to speak of. Any friend of Lucas is a friend of mine, Thomas said, showing them to a small cabin on his property. It was simple, just one room with a wood stove and a bed and a table, but to Natalie it looked like a palace. You can stay here as long as you need. Lucas, I can always use another hand with the horses. Miss Donovan, my wife Emma, could use help in the house if you are willing. We will pay fair wages, and you can take your meals with us. Thank you, Natalie said, her voice thick with emotion. You have no idea what this means to us. I think I have some idea, Thomas said, his eyes twinkling. Now go get cleaned up. Emma will have supper ready soon, and she will not take kindly to anyone coming to her table looking like they just crawled out of a ditch. The months that followed were some of the best of Natalie's life. She worked alongside Emma, a warm woman with graying hair and a quick smile, learning to cook and sew and manage a household. Emma never asked about the bruises that were finally fading from Natalie's arms, or why she flinched sometimes when Thomas raised his voice in laughter, but she was endlessly patient and kind. Lucas worked with the horses, and Thomas was impressed by his skill. That boy has a gift, he told Natalie one afternoon while Lucas was out in the paddock, working with a skittish mare. Horses trust him. That is rare. Natalie watched Lucas move with the mare, his voice low and soothing, his movements careful and deliberate. The horse, which had been wild-eyed and terrified when it arrived, was now following Lucas around like a puppy. He is good with anything that has been hurt or frightened, Natalie said softly. He has a way of making you feel safe. Emma gave her a knowing look. You two are planning to marry, I take it? Natalie felt her cheeks heat. We have talked about it, but we do not have money for a wedding, and I do not even have a decent dress. Honey, you do not need money or fancy dresses to get married, Emma said, patting her hand. You just need love and a preacher. Everything else is just decoration. And if you are worried about the dress, I have one from when I was your age that I have been saving. It would be my honor to alter it for you. Tears sprang to Natalie's eyes. You barely know me. Why would you do that? Because you are a sweet girl who deserves good things, Emma said simply. And because I can see how much you and Lucas love each other. That kind of love should be celebrated. Lucas proposed properly 2 weeks later. He took Natalie for a ride out to a meadow filled with wildflowers, the kind of place that looked like something from a storybook. He helped her down from her horse, and then, to her surprise, dropped to one knee. Natalie Donovan, he said, pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. I do not have much to offer you. No grand house, no fortune, no fancy titles. But I can offer you my heart, my loyalty, and my promise that I will spend every single day for the rest of my life proving that you are valuable and loved and worthy of every good thing. Will you marry me? Natalie dropped to her knees in front of him, framing his face with her hands. Yes, she said, laughing and crying at the same time. Yes, 1,000 times yes. The ring had belonged to Lucas's mother, the only thing of hers he had kept after she died. Slipping it onto Natalie's finger felt like a promise, like a new beginning, like everything she had ever hoped for finally coming true. They were married in late June in the small church in Sacramento. Emma had indeed altered her old wedding dress, a simple cream-colored gown with lace at the collar and cuffs, and it fit Natalie perfectly. Thomas walked her down the aisle, since she had no family to do it, and when she reached the front of the church and saw Lucas waiting for her, his eyes bright with emotion, Natalie felt like her heart might burst from happiness. The preacher spoke about love and commitment and facing life's challenges together, and when it came time for vows, Lucas took both of Natalie's hands in his and spoke from the heart. Natalie, from the moment I met you, I knew you were special. I knew you were worth fighting for. You have been told your whole life that you are less than, that you are not enough, but I am here to tell you that is a lie. You are everything. You are kind and brave and beautiful and strong. You are my partner, my best friend, my love. I promise to honor you, to cherish you, to build you up instead of tearing you down. I promise to be the man you deserve, to work hard so we can have the life we dream about. I promise to love you every single day for the rest of my life. By the time he finished, there was not a dry eye in the church, including Natalie's. Her own vows were simpler but no less heartfelt. Lucas, you saved my life, not just by helping me escape my father, but by showing me what I was worth. You taught me that I deserve kindness and respect and love. You taught me to believe in myself. I promise to be your partner in everything, to support you and encourage you and love you with everything I have. I promise to build a life with you filled with joy instead of fear. I promise to spend every day being grateful that you walked into that barn and saw me when I had become invisible even to myself. When the preacher pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas kissed her like she was precious and breakable and fierce all at once, and Natalie thought that this, right here, was what happiness felt like. They celebrated with a simple meal at Thomas and Emma's house. There was roast chicken and fresh bread and a cake Emma had baked, and Thomas broke out a bottle of good whiskey for toasting. Other ranch hands from Thomas's property joined them, along with a few neighbors, and the little house was filled with laughter and music and warmth. To Lucas and Natalie, Thomas said, raising his glass, may your love be as strong as good leather, as sweet as spring water, and as enduring as the mountains. May you build a life filled with happiness, and may you never forget how lucky you are to have found each other. Hear, hear, everyone chorused, and they all drank to the toast. Later, after the guests had left and they had retreated to their cabin, Lucas carried Natalie over the threshold. Mr. Wright, she said, laughing, we have been living here for weeks. This is hardly a new home. Maybe not, Lucas said, setting her gently on the bed. But you are Mrs. Wright now. That makes everything new. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing over her cheekbones. I love you so much, Natalie. I am the luckiest man alive. I think I am the lucky one, Natalie whispered. You gave me a life worth living. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, full of whispered promises and gentle touches. Lucas treated her like she was made of glass, taking his time, making sure she was comfortable and happy and present for every moment. Afterward, they lay tangled together in the moonlight, streaming through the window, and Natalie felt more content than she had ever imagined possible. What are you thinking about? Lucas asked, running his fingers through her hair. I am thinking about how different my life is now compared to 6 months ago, Natalie said. How if you had told me last year that I would be here, married to a wonderful man, happy and safe, I would never have believed you. Your father was wrong about everything, Lucas said quietly. You are worth more than cattle. You are worth more than gold. You are priceless, Natalie. She kissed him, pouring all of her love into that simple gesture. Thank you for proving that to me every single day. They spent the rest of the summer working hard and saving every penny they could. Lucas had dreams of buying land, of starting their own small ranch, and Natalie supported him wholeheartedly. They had little in terms of material possessions, but they were rich in the ways that mattered. They had each other, they had purpose, and they had hope for the future. In the fall, Natalie discovered she was pregnant. The realization came gradually through missed monthly courses and morning sickness that left her pale and shaky. Emma noticed before Natalie even said anything. How far along are you? The older woman asked one morning when Natalie had to run outside to be sick. I think maybe 3 months, Natalie admitted. I am terrified, Emma. What if I am not a good mother? What if I do to my child what my father did to me? Emma pulled her into a fierce hug. That will not happen, honey. You know what it feels like to be hurt and belittled, which means you will do everything in your power to make sure your child never feels that way. You are going to be a wonderful mother. Lucas was overjoyed when she told him that evening. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing with pure happiness. A baby, he kept saying. We are going to have a baby. Natalie, this is incredible. You are not worried? She asked. We do not have much money, and babies are expensive. We will figure it out, Lucas said confidently. We always do. Besides, our baby does not need much except love, and we have plenty of that to give. As Natalie's belly grew, Lucas became even more protective and attentive. He insisted she rest more, that she not lift anything heavy, that she eat enough for two. He talked to the baby every night, his hands splayed across her stomach, telling stories and making promises about the life they would have together. I promise to teach you to ride, he would say, and to fish and to whistle and to treat people with kindness. I promise to be patient and fair and to never make you feel small. I promise to love you as much as I love your mother, which is more than I knew was possible. Natalie would lie there, tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the gentleness of the man she had married. Her father had been wrong about so many things, but especially about Lucas. Edmund had called him just another drifter, someone who would use her and abandon her. Instead, Lucas had proven to be steadfast, loyal, and more loving than Natalie had ever dreamed possible. As winter approached and Natalie's due date drew near, Lucas surprised her by announcing they had saved enough for a down payment on a small piece of land about 10 miles from Thomas's ranch. It is not much, he said, showing her the deed. Just 20 acres, but it has a creek running through it and good grazing land. Thomas says he knows a man who can help us build a small house. We can start our own place, Natalie, a place that is truly ours. Natalie cried when she saw the land for the first time. It was beautiful, with rolling hills and clusters of oak trees and a view of distant mountains. This is perfect, she whispered. Our baby will grow up here with space to run and play. It is everything I ever wanted. They moved into a tent on the property while construction began on their house. It was rough living, especially in the cold winter months, but they made it work. Thomas and Emma helped, along with several of the ranch hands who had grown fond of the young couple. The house came together slowly, one board at a time. It was small, just 3 rooms, but it was well built, and it was theirs. Natalie went into labor on a cold February morning in 1879. Emma was there, along with a midwife from Sacramento, and Lucas waited outside, pacing anxiously. The labor was long and difficult, and there were moments when Natalie thought she might not survive, but Emma held her hand and encouraged her through every contraction. You can do this, Emma said firmly. You are the strongest person I know, Natalie Wright. Now push. When the baby finally came, a healthy boy with Lucas's dark hair and Natalie's blue eyes, the midwife placed him in Natalie's arms, and she felt her entire world shift. This tiny person, this perfect little human, was hers. Hers and Lucas's, a child who would grow up knowing only love and support and encouragement. Lucas was allowed in once the midwife had cleaned up, and when he saw his wife holding their son, he fell to his knees beside the bed. Natalie, he breathed, touching the baby's tiny hand with one finger. He is perfect. You are perfect. I cannot believe we made this. What should we name him? Natalie asked, exhausted but happier than she had ever been. Lucas thought for a moment. How about James? It was my father's name. James Edmund Wright. Natalie stiffened at the middle name. Edmund. After my father? Not after your father, Lucas said gently. After the man your father could have been if he had made better choices. Besides, your father does not get to ruin that name. We are reclaiming it, making it something good and hopeful instead of something painful. Natalie considered this, then nodded slowly. James Edmund Wright, I like it. Jamie for short. Jamie was a happy baby, all smiles and curious eyes. Lucas proved to be an attentive father, changing diapers and walking the floor with the baby when he was fussy and singing lullabies in a surprisingly good voice. Natalie would watch them together, her heart so full she thought it might burst. You are such a good father, she told Lucas one night as he rocked Jamie to sleep. Our son is so lucky to have you. We are all lucky, Lucas corrected. I have a beautiful wife, a healthy son, and land of our own. I have everything I ever dreamed of, and more. As Jamie grew, so did their ranch. Lucas bought a few head of cattle and started breeding horses, using the skills he had learned from Thomas. Natalie kept chickens and a large vegetable garden, and she started taking in sewing work from women in Sacramento to bring in extra money. It was hard work, dawn to dusk most days, but they were building something together. A life, a legacy, a home. Jamie took his first steps on the porch of their little house, and both Lucas and Natalie cheered like he had just won a race. He said his first word, "Da," while Lucas was mending a fence, and Lucas scooped him up and danced around the yard. Every milestone was celebrated, every achievement praised. Jamie would never doubt that he was loved and wanted and valued. When Jamie was 2, Natalie discovered she was pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, perhaps because she was not living in a tent or building a house. Their second child, a daughter they named Rose, was born in the spring of 1881. She had Natalie's blonde hair and Lucas's green eyes, and she was the most determined, strong-willed child either of them had ever met. She is going to be a handful, Emma predicted when she came to visit, and Rose screamed for an hour because Natalie tried to put her down for a nap. But there was fondness in her voice. She knows what she wants, Lucas said, bouncing Rose on his knee. There is nothing wrong with that. We will just teach her to channel that determination into something productive. As the children grew, Lucas and Natalie's ranch prospered. They added more cattle, more horses, and eventually hired a young man to help with the work. Lucas's reputation as a horseman spread, and people started coming from all over to buy his animals. Natalie's sewing business grew as well, and she taught Rose to sew as soon as the girl was old enough to hold a needle safely. Jamie inherited his father's love of horses and his mother's gentle nature. By the age of 6, he could ride better than some grown men, and he treated the animals with the same care and respect Lucas showed. Rose was more interested in business, helping her mother with the accounts and haggling with customers over prices at the age of 8. Where did she get that from? Lucas asked one evening, watching Rose convince a buyer to pay twice what he had originally offered for a mare. Probably from surviving my father's house, Natalie said quietly. I learned early how to read people, how to figure out what they wanted so I could avoid his anger. Maybe Rose inherited some of that. Lucas pulled her close. Your father does not get to claim any part of our children. They are who they are because of the love and stability we have given them, not because of anything he did. It had been years since Natalie had thought much about Edmund Donovan. She had sent one letter through a lawyer, informing him that she was alive and well and married, but asking him not to contact her. She never received a response. Sometimes she wondered if he was still alive, if he ever regretted how he had treated her, but mostly she was just grateful to be free of him. That freedom was tested when Jamie was 10 years old. A stranger rode onto their property one afternoon, an older man with a weathered face and cold eyes. Natalie was in the garden when she heard him talking to Lucas by the barn. I am looking for Natalie Donovan, the man said. Used to be she lived around these parts. There is no one here by that name, Lucas said carefully. Just me and my wife and our children. Your wife would not happen to be a blonde woman about 30 years old, would she? The man pressed. Goes by Natalie now, but used to go by Natalie Donovan? Natalie's blood ran cold. She recognized the man now. He was one of her father's old ranch hands, a man named Jack who had always made her uncomfortable. She stood slowly, wiping her hands on her apron, and walked toward the barn. I am Natalie Wright, she said, keeping her voice steady. Formerly Natalie Donovan. What do you want, Jack? Jack's eyes narrowed. So it is you. Your father has been looking for you for years. Wants to talk to you. My father and I have nothing to say to each other, Natalie said firmly. Lucas moved to stand beside her, a united front. If he wanted a relationship with me, He should not have spent my entire childhood telling me I was worthless. He is dying, Jack said bluntly. Cancer. The doctor says he has maybe 6 months. He wants to see you before he goes. Natalie felt something twist in her chest. Not grief exactly, more like the ghost of old pain. That is unfortunate for him, but I am not going. He is your father, Jack said, as though that explained everything. Being someone's father does not erase years of abuse, Lucas said coldly. My wife owes him nothing. Now get off our property before I help you off. Jack looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Lucas's expression made him think better of it. He tipped his hat mockingly at Natalie. Your choice, lady, but do not come crying when he is dead and you are full of regrets. He rode away, and Natalie stood there shaking. Lucas wrapped his arms around her, holding her tight. Are you all right? I do not know, Natalie admitted. Part of me thinks I should go, that I should try to make peace before he dies. But another part of me remembers every cruel word, every blow, every day he made me feel like I did not deserve to exist. I do not think I can face him, Lucas. Then you do not have to, Lucas said firmly. He does not get to hurt you for decades and then demand forgiveness just because he is dying. You owe him nothing, Natalie. Your loyalty is to yourself and to our family, not to a man who treated you worse than he treated his animals. Natalie nodded, but the encounter left her shaken. That night, she lay awake while Lucas slept beside her, thinking about her father. Did he regret how he had treated her? Was he looking for forgiveness, or did he just want one last chance to tell her what a disappointment she was? She would never know, and maybe that was for the best. 6 months later, word reached them that Edmund Donovan had died. There was no funeral, no memorial service. He had outlived most of his contemporaries, and those who remained had not been fond of him. The ranch had been sold to pay his debts, and whatever small amount was left was donated to the church. Natalie felt surprisingly little when she heard the news. Not sadness, but not relief either. Just a sort of hollow acknowledgement that a chapter of her life was finally truly closed. How are you feeling? Lucas asked that evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant colors. I am feeling grateful, Natalie said honestly. Grateful that I got away from him. Grateful that our children will never know what it is like to grow up in a house without love. Grateful for you. For every single day you have proven that I am worth something. Lucas took her hand, lacing their fingers together. You were always worth something, Natalie. Your father was just too broken to see it. But I see it. Our children see it. Everyone who knows you sees it. I know, Natalie said, and she meant it. After years of hearing Lucas say it, of seeing proof in his actions and his love, she finally truly believed it. She was not worthless. She was not less than cattle. She was a wife, a mother, a businesswoman, a friend. She was valuable and loved and whole. The years continued to pass, each one bringing new challenges and new joys. Jamie grew into a fine young man, steady and kind like his father. He married a girl from Sacramento named Sarah, and they settled on land adjacent to Lucas and Natalie's ranch, building their own home and starting their own family. Rose proved to have a head for business that rivaled any man's, and she expanded the ranch's operations to include a small general store that served the scattered homesteads in the area. Lucas and Natalie grew older together, their love deepening with each passing season. On their 20th wedding anniversary, Lucas gave Natalie a beautiful chestnut mare with a white star on her forehead. Remember how you said you wanted to see the ocean? He said, helping her into the saddle. I think it is time we made that trip. Rose can manage the store and Jamie can handle the cattle. Let us take a few weeks and go explore. They rode west to the coast, camping under the stars, and talking for hours like they had when they first fell in love. When they finally reached the ocean, Natalie stood on the beach, with tears streaming down her face, watching the waves roll in endlessly. Lucas wrapped his arms around her from behind, and they stood there together, feeling small and insignificant against the vastness of the Pacific, but also connected to something larger than themselves. Thank you, Natalie whispered, for everything, for saving me, for loving me, for giving me a life I never thought I could have. You saved yourself, Lucas said. You made the choice to leave, to take a chance on a better life. I just had the privilege of being there to support you. And as for loving you, well, that was the easiest thing I have ever done. They made love that night in their tent, the sound of the ocean a constant backdrop, and Natalie thought about how far she had come from that scared, broken girl in her father's barn. She had been told she was less than cattle, but she had become so much more. A survivor, a fighter, a woman who knew her own worth. As they grew older still, into their 50s and 60s, Lucas and Natalie became fixtures in their community. They were known for their generosity, their wisdom, and their enduring love for each other. Young couples would come to them for advice, and Lucas and Natalie would tell their story, how they had met, how they had fallen in love, how they had built a life from nothing. The secret, Lucas would always say, is to treat your partner like they are the most valuable thing in your world. Because they should be. And to never give up, Natalie would add. Even when things are hard, even when you are scared, you have to keep fighting for what you want, for who you love. They had 5 grandchildren eventually, and the Wright Ranch became a gathering place for the whole family. On Sunday afternoons, everyone would come together for dinner, and the house would be filled with laughter and storytelling and love. Natalie would watch her grandchildren playing in the yard where she and Lucas had worked so hard to build their dream, and she would feel overwhelmed with gratitude. Lucas's health began to fail when he was 72. It started small, with aches and pains that he dismissed as old age, but eventually it became clear that something more serious was wrong. The doctor diagnosed heart disease and told them that Lucas had maybe a year left. Natalie refused to accept it at first. Lucas was strong, he was healthy, he could not be dying. But as the months passed and he grew weaker, she had to face the reality. The man who had saved her, who had loved her unconditionally for more than 40 years, was not going to be with her much longer. Lucas faced his mortality with the same calm strength he had shown throughout his life. He made sure all his affairs were in order, that Jamie and Rose knew how to handle the ranch, that Natalie would be taken care of. And he spent every moment he could with his family, soaking up the love and laughter, making memories that would last beyond his lifetime. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lucas took Natalie's hand. His grip was weaker than it used to be, but it was still warm, still comforting. "Do you remember that first day we met?" he asked. "Of course," Natalie said, her voice thick with tears she was trying not to shed. "You cleaned the blood from my lip and told me I deserved better." "I meant it," Lucas said. "I have spent every day since then trying to give you better, trying to prove that you are valuable and loved. I hope I succeeded." "You did," Natalie said, lifting his hand to her lips and kissing his knuckles. "You exceeded every expectation, Lucas Wright. You gave me a life worth living. You gave me a family. You gave me happiness I never thought possible. You proved my father wrong every single day." "Good," Lucas said with a faint smile. "That bastard deserved to be proven wrong." He was quiet for a moment, then added, "I am not afraid of dying, Natalie. I have lived a good life. I have loved and been loved. I am leaving behind children and grandchildren who will carry on our legacy. The only thing that makes me sad is that I have to leave you." "Do not," Natalie said, the tears finally spilling over. "Do not talk like that. You are not leaving yet. You are still here." "I am here," Lucas agreed, pulling her close despite his weakness. "And I will always be here in a way. In the ranch we built together, in our children's faces, in every sunset we watched from this porch. I will always be part of you, Natalie. Death cannot change that." Lucas passed away peacefully 3 weeks later, in his sleep with Natalie beside him. The funeral was one of the largest their community had ever seen. People came from all over to pay their respects to a man who had been kind, honest, and hardworking. Jamie gave a eulogy that had everyone in tears, talking about what an incredible father Lucas had been, how he had taught by example what it meant to be a good man. Natalie spoke as well, though she had not planned to. She stood at the front of the church, looking out at all the people whose lives Lucas had touched, and she told them about the day they met, about how she had been broken and beaten and convinced she was worthless, about how Lucas had seen her value when no one else had, including herself, about how he had spent 43 years proving to her every single day that she was precious, that she mattered, that she was worth fighting for. "My father told me I was worth less than cattle," she said, her voice steady despite her grief. But Lucas proved him wrong. He proved him wrong in the way he treated me with gentleness and respect. He proved him wrong in the life we built together. He proved him wrong in the children we raised to be kind and loving. He proved him wrong simply by seeing me as a human being deserving of dignity and love. I am the woman I am today because of Lucas Wright, and I will spend the rest of my life being grateful that he walked into that barn and chose to care. After Lucas's death, Natalie threw herself into the ranch and her family. The grief was overwhelming at times, this sense of missing a piece of herself. But she had the children and grandchildren, and they kept her grounded. Jamie moved back to the main house to help his mother manage everything, and Rose visited almost daily. Natalie lived for another 15 years after Lucas's death, and she spent those years continuing the work they had started together. She expanded the ranch, bought more land, helped her grandchildren get started in their own ventures. She became a respected elder in the community, known for her wisdom and her generous spirit. But every evening, no matter how busy her day had been, she would sit on the porch at sunset and talk to Lucas as if he were still there. She would tell him about the grandchildren's accomplishments, about how the ranch was doing, about the funny things that had happened that day. And she would remember, with perfect clarity, what it had felt like to be loved by him. When Natalie was 87 years old, she passed away peacefully in her sleep, in the house she and Lucas had built with their own hands. Her children and grandchildren gathered for the funeral, and they laid her to rest beside Lucas, under a large oak tree on the property, with a simple headstone that read, "Natalie Wright, beloved wife, mother, and grandmother, proved her father wrong." The ranch continued to thrive for generations, passed down through the family as a testament to what Lucas and Natalie had built. And every Wright child grew up hearing the story of how their great-great-grandmother had been told she was worthless, and how their great-great-grandfather had loved her so completely that he spent every day of his life proving that was a lie. It became family legend, a reminder that love could heal the deepest wounds, that one person truly could change another's life, and that worth was not something given by cruel fathers or judged by harsh societies, but something inherent in every human being, waiting to be recognized by someone with eyes clear enough to see it. And in that way, Lucas Wright's promise to Natalie lived on long after both of them were gone. He had promised to prove her father wrong every single day, and even in death he was still keeping that promise. Because the life they had built together, the love they had shared, the family they had created, all stood as permanent evidence that Natalie Donovan had been worth everything. More than cattle, more than gold, more than any price that could be measured. She had been worth a lifetime of devotion, and Lucas Wright had gladly given it to her, finding in the process that she had given him just as much in return.